Hi guys, welcome back or welcome to DreamWorks Switch to Life. And in today's video, we are going to be reviewing the epic tales of Captain Underpants. Now, you might be thinking, great, this is another one of those DreamWorks TV shows that's based off of their movies, but no, actually. Surprisingly, I'm pretty sure this is more based off the books. We'll get more into detail about that later, but right now let's talk about the animation. First off, I got a love-hate relationship with the animation. I actually love the main animation sequence when it's 2D animated, but then sometimes, or really I should say all the time, there are random cutaways where they change the animation to sock puppets or claymation. They even have guys put on cardboard suits and fight each other in a cardboard city. Yeah, I don't know about you guys, but I wasn't really a big fan of those. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's kind of interesting that they went with that approach. My problem is that they do it all the time, like every single episode. There are like 30 cutaways, and sometimes the cutaways last more than 30 seconds. Honestly, sometimes I think this series is trying to feel like one of those YouTube poop videos, but the thing is, it doesn't work because it's trying to tell a consistent story, and, well, it's not. Which brings me to my next point. This series, I don't know what to call it. It's either a masterpiece with its humor or it's super annoying. I would say most of the time it's actually somewhat annoying because it's so repetitive, but there's also plenty of instances where the series is actually super funny, and I really enjoyed that. But then there's also parts where it's just random cutaways to random things that we don't even care about because it doesn't apply to the main story, but they stay in that cutaway for more than they should. One example is every time George and Harold talk about one of their favorite shows, then it shows us a clip from one of those shows, like Advancimals or Cosmocops or Fresh Start, and that's just a few of the examples. Oh, and then there's instances where in order to drag out the episode so that it's actually 23 minutes long, they just have the characters repeat the same thing over and 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 over stuff like that. I hated it so much. But, you know, despite scenes like that, the story is, well, somewhat repetitive in every episode, but it's actually really enjoyable. My personal favorite part of this series is the voice acting. They did an absolutely amazing job with all of the voice acting. Plus, the fact that a lot of the times in order to stretch out the episode, they just have the characters making random noises and taking weird breaths and all that stuff. And the fact that the voice actors were able to actually do that is a great testament to how good the voice acting was. It's not their fault the script is written poorly. I loved all of the characters here. We got Mr. Krupp as well as Captain Underpants, played by the same actor, but they sound so iconically different that it just works. Not to mention the fact that they actually got George and Harold, as well as a bunch of the other kids in this series, to be played by actual kids, which is really good. Though I will admit it's a little weird that you can tell in the later seasons that the kids' voice actors were going through puberty, which is a little weird, but that can't really be helped. So I'm just glad that they actually got kids to play the characters here. Also, my personal favorite part is that they gave a bunch of the characters here, like random background characters, actual personalities. Like this series focuses on students other than our main three. Like Erica Wang, who is this really cool girl who can pretty much do anything. There's also Jessica, who is obsessed with her hair, or should I say hair?
Har.
Har?
Har.
Har?
Har.
Hair?
Har.
Hair?
Har.
Har?
Har.
Har. As well as abusing her two best friends, the Sophies. Sophie 1, who she actually likes, and then other Sophie, who she constantly ridicules just for existing. There's also Gooch, who is this really weird kid who's really shy and also very weak and extremely helpless. Yeah, I didn't really like his character. One character I did like, though, is Bohemoth, or should I say Bohemoth. Turns out that he's actually this really big, buffy kid who everybody is afraid of, and he's also incredibly strong. But underneath that hard exterior, he's actually got a heart of gold. He's willing to do anything for his friends, and he's also a clay artist. He loves to make clay models, which I think is a really cool character trait to give a character that's just a random background guy. Unlike Drusy, who is just a character who enjoys music and loves singing the obvious. And the last kid I want to talk about is Stanley, who is known for sweating a lot. And I kid you not, he can literally sweat buckets of sweat a day. His family is also great farmers, and they literally keep vegetables and produce inside of their armpits and use sweat to grow them instead of water. Now, I've actually done some research, and it turns out that sweat is actually harmful to plants. So in real life, that technique would not work, even if you could get enough sweat. Which, like I said, Stanley does sweat excessively to the point where he can make buckets a day. So there's that. They also gave the teachers some personality as well. My personal favorite is Mr. Meaner because he has this weird way of talking.
Let's go.
There's a new me on the loose. Yeah.
Another cool thing that I loved is that this TV show it constantly breaks the fourth wall, though sometimes it can get a little bit annoying, like the fact it constantly breaks the fourth wall. Like, for instance, they constantly complain about the budget, like how, oh, we have this cool fight scene planned, but we can't show it to you because we're running out of show. Or in the season 1 finale, when they bring a fart to life and then they do it again, they're played by the same voice actor because they literally say they can't afford another voice actor.
Wow, Meaner's sister looks exactly like him.
It's like they took Meaner and added a ponytail to save money.
But we would never do that.
And then there's also the season 3 finale where they straight up say,
At least we're ending on a high note.
Yep, sad when shows keep going after they run out of ideas.
More Captain Underpants coming soon.
Yes, we are overstaying our welcome.
And now it's time to talk about the story. So, for the most part, there is an overarching subplot throughout the entire season, or rather the series of seasons, but each episode is somewhat repetitive. First, it starts with George and Harold talking about how they have a goal for the episode. Then they make a comic book just to make each other laugh, which sometimes gets them in trouble, or sometimes it's used as inspiration to help them solve the problem that they're facing. But then, somehow, some way, the monster that they put into the comic of the day, or rather something that's based off of that monster, is actually brought to the real world. For instance, there's a 5-headed Egyptian god of homework in the comic book, and then the homework Hydra is brought to life in the real world when 5 of the teachers are sucked into a copy machine. Which reminds me that most of the monsters they create are actually made out of some of their fellow students or teachers, most of the time people they know. And eventually, at the end of the episode, those people are returned back to normal. So it can get a little bit repetitive and a lot outlandish, but that is also what makes the series kind of funny. Oh, and speaking of outlandish, there's not one, but 2 doppelganger episodes where they straight up just move to a different town and then they meet other people who are just like the people that they knew from the old place. For instance, they just transfer schools and they meet a bunch of students like the ones in their old school, except for the fact that they wear glasses and their names are scrambled around. And they definitely didn't do it to save money. Oh, and then there's also the time where they travel to another planet and they met a world just like their own, except everybody is blue-skinned instead of normal skin. Yeah, they definitely didn't do that one to save money. And there's also the fact that there's an overarching plot throughout each season, which I really loved. Now, for those of you who watch the movie and are like, okay, let's watch this TV show because I really love the movie, you will probably hate the TV show, and the reason? It has absolutely nothing to do with the movie. Unlike other DreamWorks TV shows which are based around the movies that made them famous, the problem is that with Captain Underpants, it's not trying to be based off the movie, it's trying to be based off the book. It feels like this series is trying to be set in the book universe, not the movie universe. A big reason for that is Captain Underpants' origin story. We know that in the movie, he got his powers from a radioactive toilet, but in the book series, he got it by drinking alien superpower juice. Well, every time George and Harold go back in time in this TV show and undo Captain Underpants, they get alien superpower juice, not radioactive toilet water. So, obviously, this is based off the book. Although, if that wasn't a big clue, then the fact that the episodes are literally split into chapters should be a good indicator. My personal favorites are the chapters that go, to make a long story short, it worked. And then it's closely followed by the chapters that go, the incredibly graphic violence chapter presented in Something-O-Rama, which is kind of based off of the Flip-O-Rama from the book series, but in every episode, they do something brand new and unique, like Robo-Rama, where they have a bunch of robots fight each other, or Robo-Rama, where they have a bunch of bathroom robes fighting each other. You know, strange thing is that Captain Underpants never really wins the O-Ramas. It's just there to add something unique to the episode and maybe drag it out, but also make it so that the George and Harold have to be the ones to save the day. Also, George and Harold constantly change the letters around on signs. Most of the time, they do it at least once in the actual episode, but also at the start of the episode when they're doing the opening logos and it comes to a Netflix original series. Every single episode, George and Harold change the sign to something funny, but every single time, it's actually a different phrase that they're changing it to, which is really cool. And I love that every single time they change the letters around, they don't just add random letters. They use the letters they are given and then do something with it. Now, obviously that sign switching thing is something that's famous in the books, but it never once happened in the movies. So that's a clue that this series takes place in the book series, not the movies. So that begs the question, when does it take place? Well, once you start book 6, that's actually the start of a long journey that eventually results in the death of Captain Underpants in book 12. Also, Captain Underpants doesn't get his superpowers until book 3. So we know it has to take place in between books 3 and 6. I also think it takes place before book 5 because at the end of book 5, Miss Ribble turns into a nice teacher. In the series, she's still a bit wrathful and vengeful, so it obviously takes place before book 5, which means that it either takes place before or after book 4. Although I would think it takes place after book 4 because at the start of book 4, we see Mr. Fide quit because he thinks he's going crazy. Well, in one of the episodes here, he actually returns after being released from a mental hospital. So with all that evidence, that means that this TV show takes place in between the 4th and 5th book of the Captain Underpants book series. However, I also think that it doesn't take place in the book series because it's a branching timeline. What I mean is that in one of the earlier episodes, George and Harold go back in time to get rid of homework, and while they are successful, they realize they make a mistake, so they create homework in the present instead of fixing their mistake in the past. If they were to fix their mistake in the past, then things would return to normal and we'd be back in the book universe. But considering that they didn't fix things until the present, then that would mean that they created 2 alternate timelines, one where we have the book series and one where we have the TV show. And now it's time to talk about the actual story, and we're just going to give minor spoilers for the overarching season plot. We're not going to go into the major spoilers of episode by episode reviews. So with that in mind, on to season 1. Mr. Crump is trying to get George and Harold expelled by having them visit his office 500 times in 1 year. If George and Harold break the rules 500 times, then that means he can get them expelled from school. And also, Melvin Sneedley is trying to get into his dream school, Elite Naughty Academy. Then in season 2, spoiler alert, a cyborg version of Melvin from the future travels back in time to help young Melvin get into Elite Illuminati Academy, and he does this by firing Mr. Krupp, taking his job as principal, and Melvinizing the school. But don't worry, Mr. Krupp is still here. He's just been reduced to the vice principal after begging for his old job back. All the while, George and Harold are trying to get good grades so that they can just go to summer camp that summer. And then in season 3, they're focusing on summer camp. It's literally just the kids trying to make the best of summer camp, while at the same time, Mr. Krupp, the camp director, is doing everything in his power to make camp miserable. And eventually, the summer ends at the end of season 3, so it's back to school in season 4, where they decide to take the journey to space. Yeah, I'm not kidding you. They literally just had the 4th season of the show set entirely in space. I was not really happy with that one. I guess the series really did overstay its welcome, because apparently the space season actually left off on a cliffhanger, and to this day, we're still waiting for that cliffhanger to be resolved. And considering that episode came out back in 2020, it is highly likely that we are never getting another season of this show. So for now and forever, this will always be a show that ends on a cliffhanger. I hate it when shows do that. I was hoping for the longest time that they would just give us a 7-episode season where the kids would try to find a way to undo the cliffhanger by traveling back in time and going through a bunch of wacky adventures. And while I think that could have worked, the problem is that the budget for those 7 episodes went instead to a bunch of holiday specials, like a Halloween special, a Christmas special, and even a Choose-O-Rama special, which is where you would do an interactive episode where you decide what happens to the characters, which was a really fun concept, and apparently a lot of people thought that the Captain Underpants Epic Choice-O-Rama was the best DreamWorks interactive special. Personally, my favorite had to be Jurassic World Camp Cretaceous Hidden Adventure, but I digress. Oh, and also you actually can't find any of those interactive specials on Netflix anymore, but you can still watch the rest of the Captain Underpants TV show, and it's not like that interactive special was actually important to the series. So, that's the end of my review. Overall, my thoughts on the show is that it's pretty funny, but at the same time, it's mildly annoying. It has amazing voice acting, but that's mostly because the characters are just doing random stuff to drag out the episode, so it's actually 23 minutes long. They also tend to avoid the action sequences because they're expensive, and they do random stuff to make it cheaper, and also a little bit more interesting. But also, there's random cutaways spread throughout that just make it so that this series is super annoying, but sometimes the cutaways can be funny, so I got mixed feelings about those. This also breaks the fourth wall too much, which can be funny, but the characters, and especially the narrator, break the fourth wall constantly, and they don't even make it pretty funny, they just constantly complain about how the show has a low budget or they're running out of screen time to tell the story, which can get super annoying if it's repeated way too much, which it is. Honestly, I think that this series can really only be enjoyed if you grew up with the Captain Underpants book series or you grew up with this series, because, well, unlike the movie, which does have some emotional themes, as well as being super funny and incredibly enjoyable, this TV show can be super annoying. It lost the emotion that the movie had, and honestly, the only thing that saves this is that it's faithful to the original book series, to the point where I think it actually takes place in the book series. But what do you guys think? Make sure to leave your thoughts about this TV show down below in the comment section, and also, which do you enjoy more? The Captain Underpants books, the Captain Underpants movie, or the Captain Underpants show? And with that, I hope you guys enjoyed my review. Please make sure to like and subscribe if you want to support the channel, and if you really want to support the channel, be sure to join my membership program by clicking the join button down below or going to my channel page. But with that in mind, if you guys are subscribed, be sure to keep an eye out for my Dogman review, which will be posted sometime in the next 2 weeks. You know, because the movie releases a week and a half from now. But with that in mind, I hope you're all staying safe out there, and I will see you all in my next video. Bye-bye.
Mom! Seriously? You gotta stop painting this guy.
I can't! He's my muse!
You got any snacks?